Race 1 here in Buriram has to be one of the most dramatic touring car races I can remember for a long, long time. But no sooner than we've all got our breath back than it's time to do it again. Round 16 of the TCR International Series is just a few minutes away, and unfortunately there is bad news for fans of Pepe Oriola. The retirement that we saw in race 1 was caused by gearbox failure, the team unable to fix the damage, and so that picture says it all. A dejected Pepe Oriola at the back of the garage will not start race 16, and so we are down to 22 of the 24 entrants. The other non-starter, the Seat Leon, the RMI racing team by Sunoco, Seat Leon of Parasit Promsombat, one of the TCR Thailand competitors. There is the man who starts from pole position. Aurelian Panis started from the back of the grid in race 1 after the engine change penalty after Oschersleben, but Panis qualified in 10th, and so with the reverse grid he starts from pole position for race 2. There is, however, the small matter of the double TCR champion Stefano Comini starting alongside him in the Audi. Comini desperate for a good result. There he is in the black and blue Audi RS3 LMS. The Come To You racing car starts alongside with the former West Coast Racing driver Giacomo Altoe starting alongside Cantadi Cusiri, who took his place in the team. That could be interesting. Pepe Oriola not starting, so Attila Tashi has a gap alongside him on the grid. Row 4 is Jean Carvenet and Norbert Mikelic, James Nash and Mato Homola on row 5. Row 6, Gianni Morbidelli and David Kajaya. Row 7, Dusan Borkovic and Daniel Lloyd. Frederick Vervish starts alongside Rob Huff. Then it's Munkung Satyan Tirakul alongside Duncan Indy. Charia Nuya alongside Natanid Liwatenavaragul. No Parasit Promsombat. So Ratanin Linutafong starts on his own, and then Natachak Hanjitkasen and Douglas Koo on the 12th and final row of the grid. Pepe Oriola resorting to the role of frustrated spectator. He badly needed really good results here in Thailand to get his championship campaign back on track, and it's going to be 2 DNFs, 2 0-point finishes for Pepe Oriola, and the disappointment tangible. His teammate Dan Lloyd, well, he managed to finish the race. Unlike James Nash in the third of the Lukoil Craft Bamboo Seats, there's team manager Andrew Chisholm. James Nash, for the second time this weekend, breaking a drive shaft in the Seat. So 0 points from race 1, but at least he can start race 2. Looking down the start-finish straight as the cars set off on their green flag formation lap. Everyone underway. The other story, of course, the cruel, cruel blow to Mato Homola, who led the race for so long, retired with a puncture only a few laps from home, allowing Norbert Mikelic to take the victory. And we now know that it was just sheer tyre wear, because Mato Homola unnecessarily perhaps pushing too hard, and Norbert Mikelic telling us after the race that he knew, or he suspected, what would happen, put a little bit of pressure on Mato Homola, and so it was maybe the inexperience of Homola versus the wise old shoulders of Norbert Mikelic that resulted in the Opel picking up the puncture and yet again denying the car, the team, the builders, and Mato Homola that elusive first victory in the TCR International Series. That's the scene at West Coast. Cantadi Cusiri, currently leader of the TCR Asia Series, where of course he drives a Team Engstler Volkswagen Golf, switching to the similar, and one would have thought now virtually identical Golf of the West Coast Racing team. All sorts of changes being made thanks to Cusiri's experience. He's on his home track. And another driver stepping up, another Thai stepping up to the International Series, Munkong Satyan Tirakul, who is in the other DG Sport Competition Opel Astra. Satyan Tirakul has competed in all 3 of the International Series races here at Buriram. His best result, a 9th in race 2 back in 2015. But Aurelian Panis in the Boutsen Gignon Honda Civic, all the pressure on him, has to make a decent start. He has Comini alongside him, Cusiri behind him, alongside Giacomo Altoe, And then Tashi, who we know always makes a good start from row 3 of the grid, with the gap alongside him where Oriola would have been. There is Mrs. Borkovic. And what luck, I wonder, can Adriana bring her husband? A superb result for both of the Alfa Romeos in race 1. Dusan finishing on the podium, and David Kajaya, despite starting from the back of the grid because of the engine change penalty, getting up into the top 10 and into the points. And you have to wonder what would have happened if it hadn't have been for Borkovic clipping the tyre stack and the oil fire in Q2 yesterday for Kajaya. There are the two Alfa Romeos in the back of your shot. And after that dramatic race 1, you have to say the scene is set for yet more dramas. 14 more laps lay ahead of us. Round 16 of the 2017 TCR International Series is now just moments away as Aurélien Panis heads up to take his spot on pole position here in Buriram. Several familiar names from driver and team from world-class motorsport, from Formula One. But the pressure now on those young shoulders. There is Kamini on the left of your screen in the Audi. His teammate Frederick Vervisch will start from row 8 on the grid in 15th position. There is Douglas Koo, who takes up the final place on the grid. Koo from Malaysia, but competing in TCR Thailand. Cars then slotting into position. The nerves are starting to show on the faces in the garages. The flag will switch in a moment from yellow to green. Once again, marshals being called in. It was Homola who wanted to check the bonnet pins on the Opel just before the start of race 1. Marshals just coming in. And what are the problems? Nope, they go clear. And so the green flag waves. We are moments away from this second race in Buriram in Thailand. The lights go on. We're watching for the front row. The lights go off. Will it be Boutsen, Gignon? Will it be Come To You? Will it be Mira Racing? There is Altoe, who pops up alongside Stefano Camini. Makes a stunning start. It's Altoe in second place. Tashi already up into 4th. As the car stream, there is Tashi, once again edged out. And has he got past Mikulic? So, there is Panis. There is Tashi going around the outside of Camini, as Altoe possibly holds up Camini to allow his 18-year-old Hungarian teammate to go round the outside of turn 3. No, it hasn't worked. If that was the plan, it hasn't quite come off. Mikulic is in there too. Tashi weaves. He's still alongside Camini. Altoe ahead. So it's Panis from Altoe, from Camini, from Tashi. Just has to give way and takes to the runoff area. There's the left-hander at turn 5. There is James Nash ahead of Rob Huff, with Homola just behind. So then, that's how our top 6 looks. All 3 of the Mira Racing cars in the top 6. Oh, and was that one of the West Coast cars just diving up the inside? Vervisch alongside Huff, with James Nash, I think, behind. There is Nash ahead of Huff, ahead of Homola, ahead of Borkovic. There is Morbidelli in the mix as Huff goes up the left-hand side using the runoff area at turn 12. We're on lap 2 of 14. Aurélien Panis leads Giacomo Altoe by nearly a second. Stefano Camini is 3rd ahead of Tashi. Norbert Mikulic is 5th ahead of Cantadi Kusiri. Then it's Nash, Vernet, Mato Homola and Dusan Borkovic, and that's your top 10. And that's Dan Lloyd getting past Frederick Vervish at turn 3, the hairpin. So Dan Lloyd moves up into 14th place, outside the points, but as we saw from race 1, pretty much anything can happen. We saw Rob Huff there, and that's Jean-Carl Venet running very, very wide. Venet, you'll remember, already summoned to see the stewards after race 2. Several drivers, including Venet, being warned for track limits in race 1. And Venet scrapping with James Nash, just getting past. And that's the bottom of the top 10 we're looking at. So, Mikulic ahead of Kusiri. With Homola and Borkovic side by side. Borkovic takes 9th place. Or does he? They run 3 abreast. That's Rob Huff in the Leopard car, the Volkswagen. Then it's Borkovic alongside. Huff has the line for turn 1. Homola just tucked in behind. This is the long drag down 2. Through the left-hander at turn 2, down to the hairpin at 3. And the Alpha, very, very strong, that little engine. And indeed, Borkovic noses ahead of Huff. Huff hard on the brakes. Last of the late breakers, just nudges ahead. But that's a battle I think we need to watch. That's Huff scrapping with Borkovic and Homola and Kajaya on the outside. That's 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th. Huff just staying ahead of Borkovic at the moment. Homola just gets it sideways. Was there contact? And indeed, Kajaya, I think, has got the inside line. No, indeed. Homola holds the position. Just going out of shot. No, indeed. Kajaya takes the position. Kajaya passes Homola for 11th. So the two Alphas running together. Huff ahead of Borkovic, ahead of Kajaya, ahead of Homola. So that's 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th. At the head of the field, Panis leads over Altoe by 1.1 seconds. Then it's about half a second to Stefano Camini, who's 3rd. Then Attila Tashi, Norbert Mikulic, Kantadi Kasuri, Jean-Carl Venet up to 7th ahead of Nash. And then it's that battle we were watching. There's Dan Lloyd behind Kajaya. Homola right behind Borkovic. Behind Kajaya, excuse me. So Kajaya 16, Homola number 70. Let's just watch the start again. Looked clean, but look at that start from Giacomo Altoe in the 21 Honda, the Mira Racing Honda. Looks one way, then jinks across, goes the other way around Comini, and that's Frederick Vervish, Comini's teammate, up in the scrap with Gianni Morbidelli. That's the battle for the lead. Panis from Altoe, from Comini, Tashi, Mikulic, Kusiri, Venet. As Venet just has a little look up the side, the inside of Kusiri. Just behind is James Nash, just behind him is Rob Huff. Kusiri runs wide, comes back on alongside Venet, but Venet has the line. Oh, contact, I think, between James Nash and Kusiri. We'll hopefully take a look at that back in a moment or two. Kajaya running in 11th. Norbert Mikulic heads that train of cars. So, Kajaya now up into the top 10 as Kusiri has dropped down into 11th. Will there be any action taken over that contact? I keep an eye on my timing screen. Through goes Tashi, Mikelic. There is Vinay. That's the battle we're watching between Norbert Mikelic, who is playing rear gunner now to Attila Tashi, letting his young teammate get away, and of course holding back Jean-Carl Vinay. The pair, that's Tashi and Vinay, going into this race level on points. Tashi though has 2 race wins compared to Vinay's single victory during 2017, and the first investigation is flashed up between James Nash and Kantadi Kusiri. So indeed there is to be investigation as one of the Alphas runs wide. I think that was indeed, yes, it was Kajaya. We're looking at Borkovic. We were looking at Borkovic and Huff. There indeed is Borkovic just ahead of Huff. Borkovic now 8th. And Mikelic still holding off Vinay. Nash in close attendance. So that's 5th, 6th and 7th. Mikelic 5th, Vinay 6th, Nash 7th. Then it's Borkovic 8th, ahead of Rob Huff now. David Kajaya still 10th, despite that little trip onto the run-off zone that we saw a moment or two ago. And Mato Homola outside the points. Bitterly disappointing weekend for him. Also outside the points, Kusiri and Morbidelli of West Coast Racing. And after Kusiri went quickest in free practice 1 yesterday, you'd have forgiven the team for being hopeful of some points from Thailand. There is our race leader, Aurelian Panis, ahead of Giacomo Altoe. 2 of the youngest drivers in the TCR International Series, 1 and 2 at the moment. Then it's the wily fox, one of the biggest characters in the series, and the reigning champion Stefano Camini 3rd. Attila Tashi 4th. Then it's Mikelic holding at bay Jean-Carl Vinay. And Mikelic making that Honda as wide as he possibly can. The first warning of track limits for Gianni Morbidelli in this second race. And Vinay right up behind Mikelic. Nash playing the waiting game. And what a change this year. Seats have won here in Thailand all 4 races that have been held for the TCR International Series. Not to be this year. So Camini then with Tashi behind. Mikelic, Vinay, Nash, Borkovic, Rob Huff and David Kajaya rounding off the top 10. Now we're halfway through this 14-lap race, and Tashi is hunting down Camini. In theory, the aerodynamics, like on the Audi, like the first sector, the 2 long straights, down to turn 3, the hairpin, and then this straight between turns 3 and 4. But the latter 2/3 of the lap, sectors 2 and 3, should in theory favour the Honda, as James Nash has gone, is fighting with Borkovic. There is Nash, there is Borkovic, and there is Huff. But Nash was tucked up behind the battle between Mikelic and Vinay. He's dropped back into the clutches of Borkovic, and I thought for a moment that the position had changed hands, but I suspect it's only a matter of time, judging by what we saw in race 1. No change at the moment then, but Nash has definitely fallen back. He's now into the clutches of Dusan Borkovic with Rob Huff just tucked in behind. Rob Huff just takes a little look up the outside of Borkovic as they settle in for the right-hander at turn 1. The leader's on lap 8 of 14. Borkovic just runs a little wide. You may get a warning for that. Nash has a warning for track limits, talking of which. And the incident between Kusiri and Nash will be reviewed after the race, so no penalty for now. Mikulic still holding off Jean-Carl Venet. There is Tashi. And the gap between Tashi and Comini doesn't seem to be coming down that much. And has Borkovic got Nash? Just looking in the background of the shot, I think Borkovic has taken 7th away from Nash. Indeed he has. The white Alfa Romeo ahead of the red Seat. Indeed, if at the back of your shot you see there, Borkovic now ahead of Nash, still with Huff tucked in behind, with Kajaya behind them. Little puff of smoke from the brakes as they just lock up from the Alfa. Borkovic now off in pursuit of Venet, who's his next target. And Kajaya has a little look up the inside of Rob Huff, but thinks better of it and just tucks in behind. Behind Kajaya in 11th place is Kusiri. And you just see the Alfa already pulling away from the Seat. Into turn 3, the hairpin then. Mikulic still ahead of Venet. Borkovic now up into 7th. Nash in 8th. Huff in 9th. Oh, Kusiri running wide, but doesn't lose a place. Homola just tucked in behind, but these are outside the top 10, remember. We're not looking at points positions here. These are the remainder of the point scoring positions. 8th, 9th and 10th. Kusiri, there he is in 11th, with Homola in 12th, Dan Lloyd in 13th, and then Munkong Satyanthirakul in the Opel is down in 14th. There's Kusiri, there's Homola. Warnings for Jean-Carl Venet, track limits. Warning for Vervish for track limits. Vervish currently back down in 16th place. And Rob Huff just taking a look up the inside of James Nash as Homola goes slingshotting past Kusiri. Has he left it too late though? I think he has. Kusiri retakes the position, and indeed Dan Lloyd also goes past the Opel, so it was a brave move by Homola, but one that didn't come off because Dan Lloyd now has the line for turn 1. Back with the battle between Mikulic and Venet for 4th and 5th, for 5th and 6th, excuse me. No big changes at the moment. There is Borkovic, Nash, Huff and Kajaya, and behind them Kusiri and Homola. Brave move by Homola. And then Dan Lloyd and Turbo, Satyanthirakul in the other Opel. There he is in the 67 car. A little bit ragged over the curbs. And this is 12th, 13th and 14th we're looking at here between the two Opels, with the Seat sandwiched in the middle. Dan Lloyd having raced here in the GT Asia series back in 2015. And warning flags now for both the Leopard Volkswagens, both Jean-Carl Venet and Rob Huff getting warning flags for track limits. That's the final warning, guys. The team, I'm sure, will be telling them on the radio, you can't afford any more off-track incursions. Panis then, ahead of Altoe, 1.4 seconds the gap. Comini still third, Tashi still fourth. Mikulic holding off Jean-Carl Venet, playing the perfect teammate. There is Borkovic. Nash just staying ahead of Rob Huff and David Kajaya in the second Alpha. Just out of your shot. There he is in way back in the distance, so Kajaya dropping back. So a problem for David Kajaya in the second of the Alphas as Rob Huff takes a look up the inside of James Nash at the hairpin. And we'll get confirmation. No sign of Kajaya, so Kasiri is up into the points. And there's the gap behind Huff. There is Kajaya, and did I see a puncture? Seems to be possibly steering. It seems to be down on the left-hand side. Altoe hunting down Panis. Kamini and Tashi fairly lonely in third and fourth. Then it's the scrap for fifth. And Venet potentially happy to play the waiting game just to see if there'll be a mistake from Mikulic. Good luck with that, Jean-Carl. The gaps between the three remaining remarkably constant, 0.3, 0.4 of the last 3 laps. The leaders have just started their 12th lap out of 14. And the gap between Panis and Altoe at the head of the field still around 1.4 seconds or thereabouts. Now, is Venet doing to Mikulic what Mikulic did to Homola in the first race, just keeping the pressure on? And because of the heat, is there potentially a tyre issue, I wonder, in the closing stages of this race? So, Kajaya's problem, whatever it is, has elevated Kantadi Kasiri in the West Coast Racing Volkswagen up into the points. He currently lies 10th ahead of Mato Homola, Dan Lloyd and Satyan Tirakul in the other Opel. And Borkovic not pulling away from Nash as I'd expected. And there comes Kajaya. Borkovic getting a warning, his final warning for track limits. So the team will be on the radio saying you can't afford to be given a drive-through at this stage or potentially a time penalty. Also a warning for Duncan Indy, who we've hardly seen. Duncan Indy currently 16th in the Icarus Seat. Still Jean-Carl Venet tucked in behind Norbert Mikulic. Everyone, it seems, treating this second race a lot more carefully than they did the first. Looking at the timing screens, the gap between Panis and Altoe at the head of the field having stretched ever so slightly to 1.6 seconds. Panis now a lap and a half away from taking a brilliant first victory in the TCR International Series. And it will be, if things stay as they are, the second victory for a Honda Civic here in Thailand today. This is the rundown to turn 4. There goes Kamini, Tashi. Mikulic moves back across, not allowing Venet to get the aerodynamic toe down that straight. Venet, though, takes a little look up the inside. Oh! That's white smoke from Mikulic. That is potentially a turbo. and yet he continues. Now, that wasn't dust thrown up from the track, surely, unless it was an oil surge. The Honda, though, keeps on going. That will have been a scare for the Mira Racing team watching from their pit box. Venet again just taking a little look up the inside, and again we see that smoke from the Honda, and this time Norbert Mikelic slows and Jean-Carl Venet goes past, as does Dusan Borkovic, as does James Nash, as does Rob Huff, and so off the track pulls Norbert Mikelic. We saw the problem. It's technical, that much we know, whether it's engine, whether it's turbo, but the white smoke would normally suggest a turbo problem. And that is the end of Norbert Mikelic's race, but he's served his purpose well. Jean-Carl Venet is something like 3 seconds behind Attila Tashi on this final lap. And so you'd think, wouldn't you, that the gap is too large. There is Borkovic, there is Nash, there is Huff. Borkovic elevated a place to 6th, Venet now 5th, and Nash, Huff, Kusiri and Homola all gain a place. Homola moving into the points in 10th place. But just as in the first race, we've paid precious little attention to our race leader. We hardly saw Matto Homola in race 1 until he had the problem right at the end of the race. And it's a similar story for Aurélien Panis, who has already crossed the finish line. We didn't actually see the winner cross the line, but Aurélien Panis takes the victory for the Boutson-Gignon team. And there will be celebrations. I hope there he is. I really hope we can get a replay of him crossing the line, as hugs and celebrations from the team. Panis alights to flag victory for the young Frenchman. Ahead of Giacomo Altoe, Stefano Camini will be relieved to have finished on the podium. Attila Tashi finishes 4th, and so moves into the lead of the Drivers' Championship once again, because Jean-Carl Venet, they came into the race level. He finishes 5th behind Tashi. Borkovic is 6th, James Nash is 7th, Rob Huff is 8th, Matto Homola is 9th, and Cantadi Kusiri is 10th, ahead of Dan Lloyd. So disappointment for Norbert Mikelic, but as I say, the job is done. He's not looking at the Drivers' Series. An extremely strong finish from Mira Racing once again. Not quite the double podium that they got 1st and 3rd in race 1, but on this occasion 2nd for Giacomo Altoe, 4th for Attila Tashi, and the team will be happy with that. Their biggest rivals in the Teams Championship this year are Lukoil Craft Bamboo, and only one of the cars, James Nash, finishing 7th, with Dan Lloyd outside the points, and Pepe Oriola didn't even start the race after that gearbox problem in race 1. So that is our new Drivers' Championship leader, the 18-year-old Hungarian Attila Tashi. There is James Nash, there is Tashi. I think that was Camini in the background. Indeed it was. The cars coming around to the grid. So, not the dramatic race we saw in race 1. I mean, I don't think we could have coped with much more in the way of drama after that amazing first race. But still stories to tell from race 2 here at Buriram in Thailand. The winner, a very relieved Aurélien Panis, And the new leader of the Drivers' Series, retaking the lead in the series, is Attila Tashi. That third place doing Stefano Camini no harm whatsoever either. He came into the race in fourth place in the series, but of course Roberto Colchago not making the trip to Thailand because of the broken ribs he suffered